This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglan.
15. Kentucky elk hunting this year is 15. Registration is now open for the Elk Draw through April 30th. We go inside outdoors with Gabe Jenkins, coordinator for the Kentucky Elk Program, to talk about our Kentucky elk herd, the largest in the eastern United States, the continued intense interest in getting drawn to hunt, and what do you do if you are? Interesting info. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. The natural tax shelter.
When I'm 15, I'm going to be prom queen. When I'm 15, I'm going to have my own limo and private jet.
15 is a good year. Just ask Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. To honor our 15th anniversary of elk hunting, the new Pick 4 option doubles your chance to take home a trophy.
When I'm 15, I'm going elk hunting.
The Kentucky Elk Draw. Is 2015 your lucky number? Get your elk permit and dream big.
sw.ky.gov.
Have you ever bought a lottery ticket? Ever dreamed of hitting it big in Vegas? Well, if you live in Kentucky and you love to hunt, and you have put your name into the hat to be drawn to hunt elk in this state, you can't help but dream big. Huge, majestic animal, the largest on the Kentucky landscape. Hey, you've registered for the hunt. You might as well be you. But what if it is? Then what? Is the hard part over? Just getting drawn? What do you do now to truly make this the hunt of a lifetime? Gabe Jenkins has those answers, we believe. He heads the Kentucky Deer and Elk Program. And Gabe, welcome.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. Great to be here.
Thinking about big game in Kentucky, it's always nice to put things in perspective. I have a friend in the National Archery in the Schools program, NASP, and he is from the Republic of South Africa. He's part of a ranch down there who is a safari leader. And I think in South Africa, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you've been there and done this, they don't call it big game, they call it dangerous game. Have you ever heard of that term?
Yes, I have.
Kind of hard to come to Kentucky and hunt dangerous game. Is it?
For sure, in the way that South Africa explains or that defines dangerous game. Dangerous game to them is animals that eat you. And typically in Kentucky, we don't have those animals.
He will lead you on rhino, buffalo, giraffe. Giraffe doesn't seem dangerous. Impala, wildebeest, zebra, ostrich, jackals, warthogs, hyenas, leopards, and cheetahs, to name a few. I like the certification that he had to go through, and I think in the United States, in Kentucky, you don't really need to do all this. Hunting is a whole lot simpler. He has completed the course in professional hunting school, as well as advanced professional hunting courses. Is that similar to our hunter education?
Not at all, actually. I'm fairly familiar with the South African things that they have to do. A lot of those are requirements in order to be able to guide somebody or take somebody out to hunt. There are also requirements for them to actually be able to hunt themselves. Firearms are very restrictive. They have to take all these different classes, register their firearms. They can only have a certain number of weapons per caliber type, and they have to be trained, and they have to take a class for each one of them, and it's very, very restrictive. So the government requires them to take all these courses to prove proficiency with that, which is much different than how we are here in the U.S.
A lot simpler here.
Yes, sir, very much so.
So big game in Kentucky, you're the man. What's your title, Deer and Elk?
It initially was big game. We tried to transition it with my predecessor, Tina Brunges, and really labeled it as the Deer and Elk coordinator. Bears fall under another program, so so we kind of labeled it as deer and elk.
But you are the Deer and Elk Program coordinator. This is the time of year when we're going to be clamoring for folks to put in for the elk draw. And that will go on anytime between now and 30th of April.
Yes.
Elk hunting in this state began in 2001, as I understand it.
Correct.
So now in our 15th year.
Mm-hmm. And the department is very proud of that. We really want to push our 15-year anniversary. It's, thinking about it, it's hard to believe we've had these animals on the landscape this long and have been hunting them for 15 years. I mean, many of us can remember the time when they were released, and that seems like yesterday, but it's really 15 years. So
in that first hunting season, if I'm remembering, there were only 12 tags issued.
6 cows and 6 bulls.
And now we're up to 1,000?
Yeah, we've had as many as 1,000, and in some years we've bounced around from 1,800 to 900 to 1,000, so somewhere around in that range each year.
Are those decisions of how many tags are issued based on management?
Those decisions are a blend of many different things, not just management, but social factors, the needs of the locals in East Kentucky, what our commission thinks. Elk is in vogue right now. Everybody likes to think about elk and talk about elk, and when that happens, there comes a lot of special interest, and so some years they back off of it. We as a program make recommendations to the commission, and that's how the commission is set up to work. That we make the recommendations to them, and they ultimately make the final decision. And so some years they take what we recommend, and some years they don't. But that's the way the system works, and we do our job to provide the best science we can for them to make the most informed decision. Today
we're giving out 1,000 tags, at least for the hunting season coming up in the fall of 2015. So after April 30th, you put your name in for a tag, you could be like one of 1,000.
We're giving out 900. 900 for 2015. In 2014, we gave out 1,000.
Where did I see the number 910 come up? 910
refers to 900 general draw tags, and then 10, we have 10 youth-only tags that the youth 16 and under 16 can apply for, and those are special tags set aside. So it was 1,010 last year, 1,010 the year before, and then 910 this year.
Do you have a count? How many elk are out there?
We have an elk model. It incorporates a lot of different data that we collect. We do ground counts. We fly in a helicopter and count. We look at various other reproduction factors. And that's really just one tool in our toolkit as far as making recommendations. We also look at vehicle collisions and disease prevalence and nuisance complaints. All those things help us make decisions on what we think the current population estimate is. And on those counts, everybody wants to know, how many elk do we have? That's the biggest thing. Well, I say we have 9,285. That's just a number that we're pulling. And
there's no way to read.
No, there's really not. And when you think about populations, if we have, say, 10,000 elk and spread those across the 16-county zone, which is as big as Yellowstone, and trying to come up with a fairly accurate estimate is difficult, very difficult. And so what we look at is trends. We have a model and we have a number. But what that number and that model is saying over time, is it increasing or is it decreasing? That's what really tells the story. So what that number is, that's I'm not as hung up on that. But what that trend is doing, that's where I'm really focused.
I remember your predecessor, Dr. Tina Brunges, who was on this radio show several times, and she would give information like that. Said, we don't really know. There is no Facebook for deer. They don't just check in and succumb to a census as we wish they could. But we have to look at trend data, crop damage, and so forth. And so that works not just with elk, but also for deer.
Right. And, nobody's coming up to me and asking, how many deer do we have in Menifee County? We don't know. We've got an estimate. And do I put faith in that number? Not a whole lot, but I think it gives me a good feel for what's going on in the county. So it's the same. It's the way all populations are monitored. People just want to know, because we started with a small group and we knew how many we started with, and I think a lot of people think, well, since we knew what they started with, we should know exactly how many there are. And 15, almost 20 years now, it's difficult. So we do our best. We get out there and we count, and we have good science. Our biologists are fantastic biologists, do a great job, and I think that we do a great job at managing the resource.
Let's talk about putting your name in for being drawn to hunt elk this year in Kentucky. You said 900 tags will be offered. I was talking to the husband of a cousin of mine over Christmas, and he says, why don't you do preference points? I put in year after year after year. It's getting frustrating.
Right.
And I said, I'll ask that to Gabe when I have him on the show.
That's a great question, and we get that question a lot, and I understand why.
Gabe, we want to address that. Let's get past this commercial break, and we'll come back and delve into it. Stay with us. You are listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin. Gabe Jenkins is my guest. He is the Deer and Elk Program Coordinator for the state of Kentucky. My first question to the man in this segment is to answer what anyone who has ever put in for an elk permit has long wondered. Preference points.
When you think of preference points, we offer preference points for our quota hunts on our WMAs for whitetail, and same with waterfowl. A lot of the big game western hunts in the western part of the country do the same as well. And the way the system is designed is to give you greater chance as for more years that you apply. And ultimately, it should help your odds, or you'll eventually get drawn for a tag. Kentucky is very unique in the fact that we have a huge interest in applying for these tags and very, very few elk tags available. So we can take 2014 for an example. We had 1,000 tags. We had almost 70,000 applications. So in the normal preference point system, 1,000 people would have got a tag. 69,000 people would have got a bonus point or preference point. So year two, 69,000 people are going to have it be in there twice, and then anybody else that's new is going to be behind. And that first cohort that gets one preference point, those 69,000 people, at the current rate that we're at, it will take everybody in that group 69 years before they're drawn for a tag. And if you miss that first year, you're more than likely never going to get a chance to even be drawn. 70 years? My grandkids might not necessarily be able to get drawn at that rate. So the system that we have is really the best thing that we've been able to come up with. We reevaluate it every year. It's very, very difficult. There are a lot of interest in hunting elk here in Kentucky, and we want to give everybody the best chance. And really, the odds are pretty good. It's a lot of folks like to call it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but I really hope that as our herd gets bigger and expands more, that it's not. For people who have been drawn, I think they expect to hunt elk once again in their lifetime before they die. So that's kind of our hope, is to be able to provide that opportunity.
If you have 70,000 people wanting tags,
right,
and 10,000 elk, it ain't gonna work.
And, people talked about over-the-counter tags. Well, heck, if we had over-the-counter tags, we would kill every elk. Yeah. You look at history, and that's the reason why elk were extirpated from Kentucky, is over-hunting. And that's where Fish and Wildlife agencies play in to manage the resource and keep those numbers in check to where we want to see the population.
Something new this year to quell this, I'll never get drawn situation. The new Pick 4 option.
Correct.
That's going to help. Initially, it was $10 and cross your fingers. Then it went to the Pick 2. And now this year, Pick 4. Doubles your chances.
Correct. So now it allows you to apply for all four options. Initially, like you were saying, Charlie, you just applied and you got what you got. And some folks were only interested in hunting a bull or only wanted a cow, and we had a lot of folks not showing up, or they didn't care because that's not the tag they wanted. So then we came up with the forward tag system where we have currently, where you have the firearms cow, firearms bull, archery crossbow cow, and archery crossbow bull. And we allow allowed hunters to pick from 2 of those out of the 4. We had a fair number of requests asking to be able to apply for all 4, and so we heard those requests, and now we're allowing folks to apply for all 4 if they would like.
So to apply, where do you do this?
You apply online on our website, fw.ky.gov. It'll be right there on the main homepage. Apply for your elk lottery. It's a very simple, easy process. Takes 5 minutes or less. Each application is $10. It won't take too long.
I remember reading in the paper and doing the math on some of this and statistics and probability. If you wanted to put in for an archery cow, your chances were like 1 in 13 you'd be drawn.
Yeah, for residents here in Kentucky, your chance for archery cow is 1 in 13. If I remember correctly, it's about 1 in 30 for cow firearms, 1 in 50 for bull archery, and like 1 in 90 for cow or for bull firearm. But I'm not for sure on those numbers, but they're somewhere in that range. So for your odds for a resident of the state, it's pretty good.
I like the pick 4 option. That absolutely has to. Not everybody is going to put in 4 times. They're probably going to say, well, I want to do a high-powered rifle and take a bull, period. Mm-hmm. And they won't put in those 4 times. But those who do, that has to help. It just has to. So I'm hoping that we come away this spring when we draw those names, say, hey, I'm glad I put in for that pick 4. So how many? Let's say we've been going back and forth, 900 tags, 1,000 tags. Let's just say, generally speaking, you have 1,000 tags for math purposes. How many of those are actually used?
80% of those actually go hunting. So
you've got a lot out there that really are. And you have to take that into account when it comes to estimating the herd size.
We do. We estimate the herd size, but we also factor that in when we're making decisions on the number of tags to issue. So we realize that there will be a certain number of tags that won't be purchased because of who knows what. If there's a health issue, or they're not able to come, or there was a job requirement. I talked to folks that they really wanted to come, but life goes on, and hunting takes a back seat sometimes. So you have those, and you have some that do purchase their tag, but only are able to go a day or a day and a half, and that can be difficult when you don't have a lot of time to hunt.
Well, let's say then somebody gets their name drawn, they have a tag, and then can't use it. Can they give it away? Can they sell it?
No, that tag is for them and for them only, so it's non-transferable, and if they don't use it, it goes unfilled for the year.
If you bought a deer tag, is same apply?
Same applies for that. I'll have a lot of people call and say, my plans have changed, now I can go. I didn't lose my tag, did I? No, the tag stays with you, so even if you have to wait, there's not a deadline for you to purchase that tag.
And that tag has to be used that hunting season?
Correct.
Can't save it for next year?
No, can't save it.
What are the odds of being drawn for a quota hunt for deer? How do they compare with elk?
The quota hunt for deer are much better. It really depends on which area you're applying for. Our most popular quota hunt for whitetail is ballard, and you can expect to get that in 3 to 4 years.
Have we reached the status yet in Kentucky? And I remember elk biologists in the past saying, we're going to have a world record taken right out of southeastern Kentucky one of these days. Are we there yet?
Potentially we could be. The thing about elk and big elk, most of us are used to thinking about whitetail, and you get a big whitetail at 4 or 5 years old, they're going to reach their maximum antler production at that age. On elk, you have to double that. You're talking 10 years. They reach their antler maturity from about 9 to 12, and that takes a long time. So when you think about that, then also you got to think about how long have elk been here. Okay, so we're talking about our 15-year anniversary for hunting. They hit the ground in December of 97, so they've only been on the landscape for 17 years. You don't have many animals that are even at that age group, and then when you multiply hunting into there, that makes it difficult. Do we have the potential? Yeah, I think we do. I think we have good genetics. Our herd is healthy. We have a very easy winter compared to what elk are used to in the West. We know our animals are a little bit bigger in body size and mass, and so that should translate into bigger elk. It takes time. And also, just because an elk is 9 or 10 years old doesn't mean he's going to be a Boone and Crockett or even a world record. Those are trophies. And when you think about Boone and Crockett's, we shoot a lot of whitetail Boone and Crockett's, but we also have a lot of whitetail in this state. We have approximately 1 million herd, and we shoot 50 Boone and Crockett's a year. And so when you think about those numbers, and if our herd is at 10,000, how many animals even have the genetic potential to be a Boone and Crockett, let alone a world record? So there are a lot of things that play into that bull and his abilities to even grow that set of antlers. So do we have the potential? Yeah, I think we do. But that's a very, very, very rare animal.
Hadn't happened yet, but they've got a darn good solid bar.
Yes,
here
for sure.
in Kentucky versus, say, anywhere up in Canada. We talked about at the opening of the show South Africa. I've seen them in New Zealand, what they call red deer. Is that the same animal?
No, it's genetically different. They're red deer. They're from Europe. They're very, very similar to the North American elk. Their bodies are a little different. Their vocal characteristics and their antler formations are different. They do crossbreed, but they are a different species.
Where are elk found? Do they go across into Siberia? Where will you find these?
In their natural range, they're North America. Traditionally, they were in the United States. Their range dipped down into Mexico and all the way up into Canada.
Gabe, we are up against a break. Kentucky is marking year 15 for elk hunting, because we do have the largest elk population anywhere in the eastern United States. Just what you need to know before you go if you get drawn. Stay with us. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm Charlie Bagman. If you would like to hear this show again, or share it with someone on Facebook, or email it to a buddy, easy to do pretty much. You can go 3 different places to find it. First is myhuntingandfishing.com. You can also find us each week free on iTunes. And you can find us on our Kentucky Afield YouTube channel. Just put Kentucky Afield Radio in the search box, and there we are. It is time now for our fishing report.
This is Tom with your fishing report from the Northeast. Winter fishing is upon us, which means you'll have to look for open water to find a spot to fish. This means you'll most likely have to settle for the rivers and bigger streams in our area. The hottest thing going all winter long for us is the sauger behind the Greenup Lock and Dam on the Ohio River. Curly-tailed grubs and silver buddies are the go-to baits for this. If you can catch an ice-free couple of days in the backwaters up on the Ohio, you might be able to produce some crappie. Other than the Ohio River, the Cave Run Lake tailwaters can be a good place to pick up a mess of crappie and even take a good swing at a muskie or a walleye. Minnows and jigs for the crappie, slow-moving baits for the muskie, and jigs with twister tails fished between the slow and fast-moving waters might produce a walleye for you. If neither one of those trips sound good to you, this is a great time of the year to clean out the tackle box, sharpen those hooks, hole your reels, and do a little planning for your next big spring trip. That should do it for the Northeast. Good luck out on the water.
Hi, this is Kevin Fry with your Eastern Area Fisheries Report. Recent weather has removed a good amount of ice from a lot of our area lakes. Bass anglers were catching some fish from grass beds in the lower lake areas at Paintsville Lake. Oxshire Flats and areas around the islands were producing some keeper largemouth bass. Slow finesse fishing and jigging were tactics being used. Crappie anglers getting fish still in shallow water in most area lakes. Fish were being found on wood or any available structure in shallow water areas at Dewey and at fish trap lakes. Plastic tube jigs, drugged slowly or bounced under floater, were mentioned as baits used. Some area lakes were stocked this week with rainbow trout. These lakes were Cranks Creek, High Splint, Kingdom Come, and Fish Pond. Very good numbers of trout were stocked at each, and providing good fishing opportunity at this time of year.
Hi, this is Eric Cummins with your Southwest Kentucky Fishing Report. Barren River Lake, the lake is at winter pool and water is clear for this time of year. Bass bite is fair to good on jerk baits, lipless crankbaits, jigs and grubs on points or on those transition areas between mud and rock. Crappie have been fair to good on brush or channel drops in 12 to 18 foot of water. Green River Lake likewise is similar for bass and crappie, with crappie being a little bit deeper, 15 to 20 foot of water. Muskie at Green River Lake have been fair on shad-colored jerkbaits and crankbaits in the cove mouths about halfway inside. As always, good luck and good fishing, and make sure your life jacket has your back.
You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio, and every sport has its own language. The Rosetta Stone of elk. After the break,
boys were in trouble.
A true story.
And it sunk right out from under us.
Perfect for duck hunting, but not for a swim in the middle of a river.
My hands were so cold in a matter of seconds that I couldn't pop the clip on my waders to get them off.
There's no time to react when your world just sinks out from under you.
3 hunters, 2 survivors, 1 reason.
Your life jacket's got your back.
Your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you, your life jacket's got your back. And the backing of sportsmen on winter water everywhere. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm Charlie Baglin, and in the studio with me, Gabe Jenkins, the man who has been with the Kentucky Deer and Elk Program for 8 years, now heads that program. This is big game hunting, as big as it comes in the Commonwealth. Last year, 70,000 put in for 900 slots. Talk about supply and demand. But there is another way now available to landowners in the Kentucky Elk Zone, the landowner voucher system.
So the landowner voucher system is a way for smaller landowners to have the abilities to potentially get an elk tag to hunt on their properties. The way we created it is it's an access program for our drone hunters. Our drone hunters really struggle to find access except for on public land, and we don't have a lot of public land. We have a good number, but not as much as we need to sustain our herd and sustain the number of hunters that we need to manage the population. So we're targeting smaller landowners. And the sideboards for this program that we put out there, the property has to be 100 acres in size. If you are 100 acres or larger and you own that, or you're the leasee of that property, you can contact us. We'll come out, we'll look at the property, we'll talk to you about elk management on your area, and we'll work with you on the number of hunters that you want to be allowed to come on the property. Then we'll open it up based on what your recommendations are. The way the system will work, it's based off of harvested animals. So for each harvested bull elk that's killed on that property, the landowner would receive 2 points. For each harvested cow on the property, the landowner would receive 1 point. And after the accumulation of 20 points, you get an either sex tag for the following year. So it's a way for us to provide opportunity for our hunters, but also our landowner has the chance to get a tag for his or herself. And we thought that was fair because it was based off of the number of harvested elk on the property. So folks who don't have elk on their farm are not going to call us and say, let hunters come, because it's based off of harvested animals. So we think we can really target where the elk are and help to distribute our pressure.
The commission had also expanded elk crossbow hunting. Elaborate on that.
So there were a fair number of requests to expand crossbow season for elk. I think a lot of our hunters who apply for the archery tag would like to have the opportunity to use a crossbow if they would like. It was very limited. It followed the season framework for crossbow for whitetail, and we needed to expand that. When the way that season was, they didn't have but a few days, and so we looked at it. We went back to the drawing board and looked at when our archery season was. We went with a couple of sportsmen's group, talked to them about the expansion of the crossbow, talked to a lot of the elk guides and elk hunters, and kind of came up with this expansion in the season. And we realized that some folks do apply for that archery permit, and they might not be as skilled as you would need to be. And if they want to pick up that crossbow and go, they can. It is a ethical, fantastic weapon that will take down an elk, and we wanted to provide more opportunity for the crossbow hunters.
Again, we're going to have this year 900 people drawn to hunt elk. There's a lot more than 900 people listening to this show. When you have a state of 4 million people and more people listening out of state and on the web, it's just interesting to hear what all you have to go through to be able to do this. You don't just put your name in a hat and get drawn and go. There's a learning curve. There's preparation that has to be done. I've never done this before. Now what do I do?
You said now what? I think that's the most common question once they get over, holy cow, I got a tag, is, oh boy, now what do I got to do? You know, for folks who have never elk hunted before, it's different. There's no doubt it's different.
I've never hunted elephant before or rhinoceros. I have no clue where it's done. And for those who do hunt, let's say you hunt deer, how close or how different is deer hunting?
Traditionally, it's very different. When I talk to new elk hunters and they're like, "What? How am I going to do this? What are we talking about?" I really compare it to turkey hunting. You know, especially during the rut, if you have a bull tag, it's similar to turkey hunting. You know, and turkeys in the spring during the season, the gobblers are gobbling. You can hear them. The same is in effect for the bulls. The bulls are bugling. You can hear where they are. They're vocal. You call to them. They sometimes answer back. You kind of have that, you know, interaction like you do in turkey hunting. And then for cows, it's kind of similar to fall turkey hunting in the fact that you might hear them, you might not. You kind of find the food resource, you find where they're bedding, and play this kind of cat and mouse with the flock or with the herd, and try to get in front or catch up to them as they're feeding along. So that's kind of how I first lay that groundwork is, have you turkey hunted? Okay, if you have, let's think about how you do that and then kind of compare it to the elk world. So it is different. It's a lot different than whitetail hunting. When you think of traditional whitetail hunting, you're up in a stand, sitting, waiting for a deer to walk by. That is not normally the case for elk. Sometimes you can sit over a funnel or a water hole, places that they frequent where they go in and out of the timber. You know, our archery hunters seem to use that more frequently than our firearms hunters, but traditionally it's a spot and stalk style hunt where you're on the ground looking for them, trying to get in front of them or call them to you. And it really, it can be a challenge for our hunters because you're standing, you're in weird body contortions to try to shoot or shoot uphill or downhill in ways that you traditionally have never shot or hunted before.
Let's say you get drawn. What happens before you get drawn? How are the drawings? Are the names put into a barrel and you reach in and grab, or is it done electronically?
The drawing is done electronically. Department of Fish and Wildlife does not actually conduct the draw. We farm that out to another government agency, Commonwealth of Technology. We started doing that 2 or 3 years ago, and just to say that we had no involvement in this. The names go down there, they come back, and here's your hunters. And at that point, the names of the hunters go online. We send out a press release saying, check the results. Results are posted. We also send a letter to all the drawn hunters saying, congratulations, you've been drawn for the tag type. Here's what you need to do from here.
So that's going to come
via mail.
U.S. mail.
Yeah, it comes through the mail, but the exact same information you get in the mail will also be available for the drone hunters on the website, on the internet.
When is the drawing?
So the drawing is usually sometime the first week or 2 of May. So the drone hunters will usually know that second to third week in May if they've received a tag or not.
So this letter says, now here's what you got to do.
Correct.
What's the first thing?
And that process has evolved a lot over the years as our number of hunters have increased in the way we try to manage the herd. And the way it will work this year is we've changed our system to where how we spread the hunters across the landscape. So now when you're drawn, you'll be drawn for we'll just pick cow archery tag. And they'll say, congratulations, you've been drawn for a cow archery tag. Your tag is good for the at-large system, which will mean your tag is good for the entire elk zone except for 4 different limited entry areas. And they're small properties that we're trying to specifically manage the herd there. Traditionally, they're around public hunting areas that have a lot of access, and they're also one of our original release sites. And the potential for over or under harvest is high there, so we want to really manage the number of hunters. So you have this at-large tag. You look at the map, you see where the 4 LEAs are, and maybe you already know somebody, or you have a guide, or you talk to a buddy who's been drawn, or you get on the website, you look at all the different resources that are out there for you to kind of do internet scouting or phone scouting, if you will, and talk to those people, kind of come up with a plan, and if you decide you want to apply for one of the 4 LEAs, you can go online. There'll be a deadline of somewhere the first week of July to get online to apply for one of the 4 of them, or all 4 if you want to do it that way. And then we'll have a secondary drawing to where we'll draw for the LEA, and then there'll be a secondary information award letter go out saying if you were drawn for an LEA or not.
Well, is there a benefit for hunting a limited entry area versus an at-large?
It really depends on the hunter. When I talk to hunters and they call, I start asking them a series of questions of where are you coming from? Are you a resident of the elk zone? Do you know somebody who's been drawn before? Are you considering a guide? Those are all questions and thoughts you need to talk about and think about before you apply, because based off of those answers will be my recommendation. So if you're thinking about a guide, I'm going to tell you talk to all the different guides, treat it like a business decision and ask for references, and then look at that way. The guide will also tell you what area to apply if you want to go with them, and then same goes with on the internet, talking to the people on the hunting chat rooms, or if you know somebody, find out where they hunted. Maybe take a trip or two down early spring and just kind of get familiar with the landscape. Everything you do down there will help increase your chances of being successful in the fall during the hunting season. So those are all things you want to consider. Do you want to camp? Do you want to stay in a motel? All of those things you want to consider to cut down your drive time or expenses.
This is something you are not going to do by yourself. You're going to take some friends with you to spot, to call, to help quarter the meat. There's a lot of work to this.
Yes, it is.
And it may not be done, you get up and go out there at the break of dawn and you're done at noon. How many days could you potentially be there?
The days, some folks get lucky and they step out of the truck and it gets daylight and there's a group of elk. You like to think when that happens you've done your homework and, careful planning and scouting, and you were successful. However, some take longer. We've seen that change in our hunting over the years. Traditionally, it would be a morning or an afternoon, and you'd be done. Now we talked previously about hunting elk for 15 years. They're wised up to this pressure, and they know what trucks and ATVs and people in orange, what that means. So it's become a hunt, and the hunts have taken longer. Now you're looking at 2 to 3 days on the average hunt. And is that because of success, or that's all the time they've got? That's a good question, but it is a longer style hunt than what it used to be.
And it's one that many would give their eye teeth to experience. The Elk Draw is open now as we speak. You can register online for the May drawing. Back with our final few with Gabe Jenkins. I'm Charlie Baglin. Stay with us on Kentucky Afield Radio. Listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm Charlie Baglin, and we're back with our final few on elk and elk hunting in Kentucky, now in year 15. Talking with the chief elk biologist for the state, Gabe Jenkins, about what if you're drawn? Now what? Now, Gabe, the drawing is held in May, but when are the actual elk seasons?
Bull archery season will be the first season that comes in. It comes in on the third Saturday in September, and it will run for 2 weeks. And then bull firearms, there are 2 seasons, and they're back-to-back, and they're the first and second Saturdays in October. And then either sex archery, crossbow hunting will come in after that, and we'll run all the way to Martin Luther King Day in January in 2016. We have 2 firearms cow hunts. One is the second Saturday in December. It's for 7 days. And then another hunt the first Saturday in January for 7 days.
So you have a few months to prepare.
It is not just going out and shooting a little deer. These are big animals. A mature bull pre-rut could weigh up to 1,000 pounds. Most of the time when our hunters are finally out there, they're in that 800 to 900 pound range. A big adult cow can be 6, close to 7. It's a lot bigger than a whitetail. You're not just hooking onto an ATV and taken out of there with it. So how you are prepared to handle that animal once it's been harvested is a big preparation issue.
Firearms, archery equipment, what are the standards?
For firearms, you're required to use a .270 rifle or larger. If you want to go at it with a shotgun, it's 20 gauge or larger. Muzzleloader is 50 caliber or larger. For archery, they're the same as far as whitetail goes. One thing I always caution our archery hunters on is you want a heavier arrow, tighter, stronger broadhead that be able to take down an animal that's 900 pounds. Most of your archery setups, I think, for whitetail probably aren't the best choice for elk. And that's where we play in on educating and when you're doing your research, trying to come up with the right system.
You're looking at a 7/8 inch broadhead.
Yeah, 7/8 minimum.
Clothing. You mentioned Hunter Orange. University of Kentucky fans will probably be curious with this. Avoid wearing blue or white clothing. Why?
There's some new research out on what they're able to see, what color hues that elk and deer specifically can see better than we do. Recent research has shown they see white and blue hues better than they do greens and browns and stuff like that.
A scope on your rifle is a good idea.
Yep, a scope, a rangefinder. A rangefinder is a very important tool that I recommend to every hunter that goes.
There are sounds that these wild animals make. I have these sounds here, and we'll play it. Bull elk, it's called bugling. So that's the mating call of the male elk, the bull elk.
Correct.
A bugle call. Now, we're listening to that now. Barking cow.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds more like a bark. What's that bark mean?
It's usually an alarm call, similar to a whitetail snort. When they bark, they've seen something that they're not sure what it is, and it alerts the herd, hey, look this direction. It usually is pretty effective. It can startle you just like a whitetail snort, and you jump and you expose yourself to the herd, and off they go. So it's a very interesting sound the first time you hear it.
So better luck tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly, and they're laughing at you as they run away.
Now they'll have the cow elk do have this sort of a whiny, soft whining sound. What's that? Is that contentment?
But yeah, I mean, they have it's called a mew. They have different vocalizations that all sound similar to that. They have there's an estrus mew, they refer to it, that the animal makes when they're in cycling looking for a mate. They also have mews where they kind of talk back and forth to each other as the herd is moving through the forest and the open areas. They talk back, and those are they make a variety of noises and sounds.
Not that much time left in the show. You have brought your elk into range, and you're fortunate with a good shot. And now you have to locate that animal. Is it going to drop instantly, or is it going to traipse off? Are they hard to find?
They're just like any other wild animal when you're hunting. Sometimes they drop, sometimes they run off. We always want to try to make a good ethical shot, and but sometimes the shot placement might be good, but they still run. Where they go, it's usually downhill. Especially a bull, they're going to take the path of least resistance. They're going to try to stay in some sort of elk trail or opening. Those big antlers make it difficult to run through the woods. So where you find a lot of them are laying right on a trail where they've expired.
A lot of what we've been discussing today on the show is available on the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife website, and what I did at fw.ky.gov, which went to the search box, put in elk hunting, and up came a number of news articles, and one that addressed, basically you're going elk hunting, what you need to know. And a lot of the things you've addressed here are mentioned there and in a little bit more detail. There's one, though, that I didn't see. Taxidermy considerations. What do you suggest there? You're out in the field, big animal, hard to get it back, but yet you want to be able to mount the animal.
Right, so you're looking at, you want to take great care of that cape. If it's one you're wanting to actually have a shoulder mount, if you will. And so not dragging the animal getting that hide off as quick as possible. And there's a variety of methods that depends on the skill set of the hunter. It can be a daunting task to try to remove the entire hide off of the head or around the neck. So taking good care of that animal and that hide. If you're not able to remove the hide off the neck and head, use ice, keep it cool, get it to that taxidermist or that professional, somebody who knows what they're doing quickly, and going at it that route.
Gabe Jenkins, this will be your first year in the business as the Deer and Elk Program coordinator for the state of Kentucky. So good luck with it. I hope you're having fun so far.
Appreciate it. It's been fun. Looking forward to the challenge, and I think it'd be good.
I always ask one question to every guest. Do you text and drive?
No, sir. That's
a good man. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Put your name in for the 15th anniversary Kentucky Elk Hunts. The new Pick 4 options, new this year, doubles your chances for the hunt of a lifetime. Hear the music playing, but let me give you the web address. Everything elk, including your permit, at fw.ky.gov. We are out of time. My name is Charlie Baglin, inviting you to join us in a week, and we will go inside outdoors again, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.